And if you, hey, Justin, hey, glad to have you here. Sorry, guys, we had some tech issues, so I'm running a little late, but glad to have you guys here. We're gonna be discussing, I think, an exciting DApp, our project here, Everipedia, and yeah, this is our weekly tokenomics and DACs session, and we've been doing DApps in the last couple weeks. And so this week, we got Everipedia, and we have Justin from EOS Blocksmith joining us as always. So glad to have you here, Justin.
It's John. Good to be on again.
And hey, Elam. And it's great because I think, Justin, you're familiar with Everipedia, right?
Somewhat. I've used it once. Like it was probably like a month ago when it first released. So yeah, I don't actually know like currently exactly how all the staking works and how users get rewarded. So I'm kind of interested to kind of dive in today and really nut out how it works.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's, I think that'd be great. I want to learn because I think Everipedia is one of the flagship projects for EOS, right? Just because it's got a big reputation, it's going after a big market. Everyone knows Wikipedia, and so this is a blockchain version of that. And a lot of people, hey Shaw, how's it going? A lot of people are. I mean, I think the founders actually are somehow related to the original Wikipedia. I thought that was also very important. You have someone with some track record that's trying to build this on the blockchain. So anyway, we could get started, I guess, with the white paper maybe, and then I think you had the idea, Justin, of trying to just log in and see how to contribute to Everipedia, since you have an account. So
should we go over the white paper first, maybe?
Yeah. So do you have it pulled up, or
let me get it up. It's funny. I actually couldn't find the IQ login at the moment. I think what they were doing previously was they had a separate site where you log in that actually connected to the IQ network, which is like their token network. And then they had the normal network, but I thought they were merging them. But anyway, we'll worry about that later. I'll get the white paper up.
Yeah, do you want to maybe I have the white paper up. Maybe.
Oh yeah.
Should I do that, and then you could do figure out kind of how to actually.
Yeah, definitely. All right, you get the white paper up for now, and I'll get the login page.
Okay, cool. So let me do that then, since I already have this. And it's what I have is essentially a GitHub link. Is that?
That's probably it, because it doesn't seem to be on the page.
Okay. So I'll go through this. So so you guys, should I zoom in a little bit? Let me zoom in a little bit. Just to be. So Everipedia is a peer-to-peer encyclopedia network. So I don't know which one was affiliated with Wikipedia, but these are the founders right here. I mean, should we just abstract? Maybe we could read the abstract, since that's the summary, and then we'll try to skim through the rest of the stuff.
Sounds good.
Okay. So emerging technology, our blockchain technology has made it possible to create an incentivized peer-to-peer network for submitting, curating, and governing a database of encyclopedia articles. Participants of the network earn tokens for curating and submitting content to the database, then use these tokens to vote on protocol upgrades and further submissions or modifications to the database of articles. Websites, businesses, or individuals can build their own user interface to interact with the network or subset of the network. This allows websites and applications to access and collaborate on a synchronized database of human knowledge, a greater wiki, that is constantly updated by all participants and applications on the network. We propose a 3-module system consisting of a token module, a governance module, and an article submission module. These components interact to create a sustainable, decentralized, immutable, incentivized network of editors that create quality, well-cited encyclopedia articles. The usefulness of having credible information included in this highly ordered, historically recorded, and community-maintained distributed database becomes valuable. This usefulness and a stake in the overall network provides the token its utility and value. So this is great. I think overall incentivizing contributions is a great use of blockchain technology. I mean, we're adding the value layer to the internet now, and so we can imagine this economic kind of factor in all of these kinds of websites. And for Wikipedia, they've always struggled to compensate contributors and editors, right? I always see these donation pop-ups saying, hey, we're struggling, we need money. But how do you create something where, now the blockchain network can provide that value by issuing new tokens, and just the collective body of knowledge is valuable. And anyway, so anything.
That's a good point. I just wanted to say, yeah, it's kind of interesting. I guess those pop-ups for donations are for the developers. So even the developers were kind of struggling, or have been struggling, and therefore need donations to keep it afloat. And that doesn't even consider the users who, I mean, Wikipedia to me seems pretty good. You generally find all the information that you want, but I wonder how good could it be if people were incentivized. It's sort of that problem that isn't kind of slapping you in the face, because you just assume well, Wikipedia is great, that's as good as it could be. But I mean, a problem is the difference between what is and what should be, and who knows what kind of Wikipedia could be if it did have a tokenized model. And that's basically what Everipedia is. It's Wikipedia with a token model integrated.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a great experiment, if anything. But I do think that this has great potential, and we'll see exactly what other. You also mentioned something great, which is Wikipedia is already very effective, and how do you get beyond that for the average? How do you get beyond that? I mean, so
yeah. What are the things that we expect we might see when the content is incentivized? That'll be interesting. What level of quality? Will it mean more interactive content? Because creating videos and editing them, it requires a lot of work, I guess. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we'll see more of that.
Okay, so curating, submitting content. So does everything kind of, at least I'm just focusing on the abstract, so hopefully we could glean as much as possible just from the high level. Just like Steam, the Steam blockchain, other people can create other kind of websites, front ends, and they can create their own websites using this knowledge, this database. So probably even to contribute to, maybe you could create various kinds of Wikipedia, maybe different and maybe categories, or focusing on certain categories, and so that it doesn't have to be just one central website. It could be many different websites using the underlying blockchain, which was always good with Steam, because there's many. It's becoming, I think, more and more popular. Other applications other than Steemit are growing faster than Steemit on the Steam blockchain. So
that's a good point. Yeah. The tokenomics system can be implemented for any type of content. I'm assuming it's not restricted to just Wikipedia type content. It could take on kind of the Steam model, really.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I think so. See how close it is, because okay, so the idea is you earn tokens for curating and submitting content. So I would assume, it's some kind of voting mechanics, right? And then submitting content is just like posting just encyclopedic information. And then the tokens are used to vote for protocol upgrades and further submissions or modifications to the database. So I guess that would be editing, modifications to the database. So if someone has an entry and you want to update that, or that would also be just editing. So it's so submitting and then editing are the two big ones that people either curate and vote on, right? I assume.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the 3-module system is interesting: the token module, a governance module, and an article submission module. So we have these 3 components that interact. Okay, so we'll probably get to that in a little bit further down, but that's just kind of how Everipedia attracts already 1 to 2 million unique visitors, which is as of August 2018. That's pretty impressive for any blockchain system. 1 to 2 million uniques are that's pretty solid for.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And again, most people consume content. People, there's probably a small percentage that contribute, probably like less than 1% of that 1 to 2 million, but probably a fraction of 1%. But so okay, so let's move on. I guess let's we could go over kind of maybe the so the introduction. This is introduction. We can kind of go maybe skip over a little bit, but other than that, they're already attracting users. They consider it a knowledge economy where economic incentives can guide creation of knowledge content instead of a nonprofit knowledge industry. So it's more of a incentivized knowledge industry. Talking about network effects. Shortcoming of Wikipedia: inability to capture any of the monetary intrinsic value content that its platform and community has created. So they're talking about the donation banner campaigns. So it's mainly adding the economic incentive. And so this is a picture of that. This is a picture of the 3 modules: governance, token, article, and then IPFS to store.
I wonder where they're storing currently, whether they're utilizing IPFS. I guess they must be, but they have to use their own separate implementation. I mean, in the future, it sounds like EOS will have its own IPFS integrated, and it's going to have you can buy it with EOS tokens, but storing it centralized or on their own IPFS.
It'll be interesting if they already have that. I know IPFS is used in a few systems. I think DTube uses it, but it's still, growing up. It's still in there. I'm sure it's there's a lot of issues with scaling IPFS still, right? So, but it is, for those that don't know, IPFS is a decentralized or distributed storage system. Or a peer-to-peer storage system where you can just hold information or data on your own computer hard drives and share it with anybody else, or participate in this networks to help store data essentially. So all right, so on-chain knowledge and facts. So should we go over this a little bit, or okay? What do you think? Like,
yeah, that's the tough one. It's quite wordy, isn't it? Let me see if they have a YouTube video. That's always the best way to go.
yeah, true. Okay, so let's go with the YouTube video just for. So as you look for it out, let me just go through and see if I can figure some of this out. Like, yeah, the YouTube videos are always a lot better.
Give people the overview of everything.
So just real quick on this section, it says smart contracts are simplistic and do not have the capability to replicate more nuanced financial arrangements in the real world. Additionally, the Oracle problem is still unresolved. So the idea is that, you know, we have the blockchain, but sometimes we need data from the outside world, and that's what an Oracle is there for, to pull in somehow data or truth from the outside world. If let's say we want to know if it rains on a certain day, we need some way of pulling that truth of whether or not it rained on that day into the blockchain. So there needs to be a trusted input. So let me see why they say this. So this they think will also help the Oracle systems, because once you have this source of truth, you can essentially trust this as a Oracle saying, okay, if someone updates saying that this team won a football game, and you can just use this Everipedia as the source of truth, rather than just relying on these other systems that try to also do the same thing. So
wow, that would be quite exciting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it is kind of a neat thing, because you always think about like how do you, like, if you're a prediction market like the Oracle problem, right? But if you could rely on a website that you trust to be the source of truth, and where there's incentive models around that, you can leverage that pretty significantly. So
one thing I wonder though is like the current data format, like just paragraphs of text, maybe they'll have tables and stuff with kind of scores, for instance, with like sports scores, because like the current format would be hard to kind of utilize.
Yeah, it is. I don't know how Wikipedia does it, but they do have a lot of that statistical information, but it's usually in some context where they have descriptions, text, like you say, about a particular subject. But they do have almost like a database of information and statistics that they have to somehow, I'm sure, verify.
Yeah.
And there's a mechanism for that. And so I guess this is part of this governance module, having consensus about what is like the truthful information.
Mm-hmm.
And so same thing. I think that's the problem with Wikipedia, because people can enter, I guess as a jokes, other like just random kind of edits to Wikipedia. And I know that's always funny to see, but you also want the integrity of the data that's on there and the knowledge. So if we have this mechanism to prevent artificial or false data, and I know that's sometimes subjective, but to have a system or consensus system that really makes a whole lot of sense. So I think essentially that might be what this governance module is doing, right?
Yeah, definitely.
The token holders have to approve, and then we go from there. Did you find a video yet?
No, I checked, and they do not have any kind of video, like in terms of an overview. They have several interviews with other people, but to date, they still don't have kind of like an explainer video, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, they're probably a little bit more tech oriented, because they have their white paper on GitHub, and when you see that, it's typically a sign that they're probably a little bit more techie, I guess, which is good in some ways as well. Like, but then on the marketing and communication side, yeah. But they're still getting a lot of traction. So, I'm sure just the idea of it attracts a lot of people. So they may not need to. So funding the network and self-sustainability. So this is more technical, but so there are many ways for the Everipedia network to fund itself, token inflation and auctioning. So they print. So one governance action would be to propose minting new IQ tokens to be auctioned for EOS tokens. So it's kind of interesting. We should kind of dig in, right, to see. So I guess this is based on resources. I should back up a little. It says the Everipedia network will require EVM resources. So EOS virtual machine resources for RAM, bandwidth, etc. And so this is kind of a utility token, right? I think that's the idea.
Yeah.
And as the network increases, it will require a higher percentage of EOS network's compute power. The tokenomics. So they can mint new tokens, I guess that's the idea. So the other thing too is they said another possibility is to auction off the IQ generated from transaction fees for EOS, which would be bound by an EOS smart contract to automatically repurchase RAM or other resources. So they would also make money through RAM transaction fees, it seems.
Okay.
But I think so. The other thing that we should also note is that they are going to be a side chain now, right, or sister chain, rather than on the EOS network. I think that was a recent news, right?
Oh, okay, yeah. I did hear something like that. I guess the costs are too high for doing everything on EOS.
Yeah. So what do you think of that, though? So I guess so if they are using, they can make money just on the EOS network, right? For like if they just have a lot of stake, EOS, and especially if Rex comes in. But where does the EOS come in with? Well, should we just ignore this because they're going to have their own chain? Maybe.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay. So do you want to go through this one, the initial supply and minting schedule? Like if you could read this.
Yeah, sure. Tokens will be minted every 30 minutes. They're called IQ reward. This is called the IQ rewards period. Through the edit process and edit curation process, there will be a fixed amount of tokens minted each day. The amount will be reset every day at, I guess that's midnight UTC. Proposed edits pass thresholds and require IQ rewards based on votes of token holders. At the end of the 30-minute IQ reward period, editors will receive IQ rewards in proportion to the value of their contribution. So how's the value of their contribution? The IQ reward available for the first year, subject to change, will be set between 1% and 5%. Assuming 5% is chosen, that would be 500 million IQ. The amount available per 30-minute period is as follows. T period equals the annual rate times by the seconds period divided by seconds of the year times by the genesis.
Yeah, I think the amount of original tokens issued.
Oh, because it's inflating on top of that.
Yeah, exactly. So Do you know what the initial supply was for tokens? Was it?
Not sure.
Did they airdrop like mostly on everyone one for one, or?
I think it was several to one from memory.
Okay, so assuming that they're airdropped, and I don't know, was everyone? It was not everybody that got it. Probably, maybe I don't know, 50%. Let's say. I assume people who were on exchanges didn't get it, right?
Unless the exchanges added IQ, I think that's the arrangement maybe they came to. That the exchanges passed it on if they were supporting the IQ token.
Gotcha. So, but they do say, so it's essentially, I think it says 5%. So, 5%, it should be then 10 billion, right? So they probably have 10 billion original IQ, and 5% of that is 500 million.
Oh, okay.
So assume the genesis is 10 billion. And then 5% over the year, that's spread out over every 30 minutes. So it's just, 500 million divided by however many 30-minute increments there are throughout the year.
Okay.
So that makes sense. It's kind of like Steam. Steam probably redistributes 5 to 7% every year. Now,
have you worked out how they work out the value of each contribution, though? Is it based on likes or?
Oh, so we should, we'll get to that.
That's what I'm confused about, but I guess maybe we'll get to that. So it has a note here, as of August 20, 2018, for testing period purposes, the T period will be set to 10 IQ per 30-minute period until the platform and code is mature enough to increase it. Okay.
So
is that the maximum amount that can be earned in that period of 30 minutes? That doesn't sound like a lot at the current IQ value, but
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, but it is every 30 minutes. So, I mean, we could calculate it per hour, I guess. What do you want to see if we can do that? Because what is Everipedia trading at right now?
It's trading at 0.0034 USD, so less than. Yeah.
So let's calculate this. So essentially 500 million. So 30 minutes. So there's two 30-minute periods in 1 hour, right? So 24 hours times 2 is 48, right? 48 30-minute periods in a day.
Yeah.
Times 365 is 17,520. And then divide that by 500 million tokens, right? So, and then I inverse it. So it's about 28.5 tokens for every 30 minutes.
Sorry, how many tokens?
28.5.
Okay.
So if we multiply that by 0.03, right?
It was 0.003.
So yeah, it doesn't seem like a whole lot. 9 cents in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's weird. Is that
You're missing something. Yeah.
So this is so let's look at it another way too. This is let's look at it. This is a little bit easier. So their market cap is 15 million, right?
Yep.
So if we take 5% of that, 15 million, that's 750,000 per year, right?
Okay.
So per day would be $2,050 per day. I think. Is that right?
Yeah, it's not too bad, I guess.
Yeah. So
Anyway.
my previous calculation was a little off because if it's 2,000 per day, then we have like every 30 minutes. Let's just say every hour.
I
Whoops.
guess it's not a lot of money being generated per day, considering. I guess you'd want hundreds of thousands of people contributing to this platform every single day.
Yeah, so it's $85. That calculation is about $85 for an hour, but you have to distribute that to like everybody.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Is it everybody who contributed during that hour? Or
Yeah. So
it's a very complicated model. Like it's not one of those easy ones to get your head around.
yeah, it's actually we should double check, but it should be similar to Steam though. So essentially, they're redistributing 5% of their entire token supply. But if it's valued at a certain amount, you're redistributing like the market capital of it. That's what we did. Like 15 million, 5% of that is a certain amount, 750,000. And out of that 750,000, that's what they reward people every year. But 300, 750,000 over is 2,050 a day, essentially 2,050 a day.
Yeah.
Of rewards. Yeah, that just doesn't seem like a whole lot. Even on Steam, that's not much more. It's probably Steam's market cap is around. It's what is it now? Steam it. Steam's market cap is around 100 million. And if they did 5%, they're probably closer to 7%. That's just about 5 times more. So it's $10,000 a day. But, $10,000 a day amongst, I don't know, maybe 1,000 contributors, like active contributors. That's like $1. That's not too bad. I mean, it probably needs to be like a lot more though, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the other question I have with Steam and others is like, maybe they're not offering enough of the network. Steam, like Inc., has probably over 50% of their own tokens. So that's where you're not offering enough of kind of the contribution value.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should be that people are getting, instead of this 5%, maybe more, and then get more of the initial snapshot or the genesis, just to encourage more people to be incentivized. Because if let's say Steam Inc. got too much early on, it's not incentivizing the people enough, the contributors enough. So you might have to increase that to like 20%, right, or something, or
Yeah.
like new people get like 20% of rewards or something like that, and have a greater stake initially. It's just my guess, because when I look at the numbers, it just doesn't seem like that lucrative, right?
Mm-hmm. So let's skip down to transaction fees.
Okay.
The initial network transfer fee will be 0.1%. The fee will either be sent to a null address and burnt in a verifiable manner, 2, pay for RAM, CPU, and bandwidth on the EOS mainnet. These numbers can be changed by the governance module. These fees only exist for transfers that are not staking governance post actions. Okay.
So they that's an extra way of monetizing, just for people who send tokens back and forth that aren't part of any governance actions. They'll make a revenue. They'll create revenue that way.
Okay. And they say the transfer fees are designed to counteract the inflationary effects of the edit awards. Since the transaction rate for cryptocurrencies tends to be volatile. Using the transfer fee directly for edit rewards would lead to too much daily uncertainty. Interesting.
Okay, so partly,
Okay, so they don't want that money to go back into the system because it'll create too much flux. Because if, on a day-to-day basis, the amount of people editing goes up or down, then it would change the reward significantly.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, if you are like using that, but you know, the other side of it is, you know, all the fees that they generate could be held in a treasury pool, right? And
workable.
So yeah, I guess that would just, they don't want too much fluctuation, but the treasury pool really just offsets the inflation, I guess. So they just keep the treasury pool and they'll have extra to reward people any given year or any given point in time. So yeah, this makes sense, I guess, but I don't know what that does. Like adding a transfer or transaction fee in the network, most people won't notice, right?
Could be also to reduce spam as well, although they haven't mentioned that.
Yeah, they didn't mention spam.
Too many people just submitting crap.
So that's true too. There should be something that does that.
Although if the fee is constant anyway, I mean, if you want to change a page and make it look wrong, like it only costs one fee anyway, which I imagine is quite small.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think there should be something like that, but maybe it's just that they won't get voted on or voted like approved. So that may be one way to minimize it. But yeah, it's just pure spamming the network. And then the EOS does have the rate limiting feature already built in. So maybe that's another reason they might not need an extra fee.
Yeah.
Right? So let's go to the article module, because this is the one you were asking about, like how you know, the posts and
sure,
and the voting work.
Do you want to read through that, or should I?
Oh, you could go ahead. You could go ahead.
Okay. The article module is used to propose edits to be included in the database. Proposed edits are tuple objects which contain an IPFS hash pointing to the immediate parent version and the IPFS hash pointing to the new version. An example of an edit could be, there's a hash there and another hash separated. So one of them is the parent version and one of them is the child version.
Yeah, I guess, you know, that's just a technical
it's more just
a statement that, you know, I guess, you know, what one data is, you know, one points to old data object and the other one points to a new one. So that's just probably too much detail.
Yeah, I guess it is nice to know that kind of everything is going to be immutable because it's going to be on IPFS and it's going to have all the versions going back into history. So I guess that's what you'd imagine. But the fact that it's on IPFS should allow them to, well, it becomes more immutable and less centralized than if it was stored.
Yeah, so, I think that's
less like malleable in a malicious way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's the important point. the idea that this is a, you know, immutable or decentralized system to store data, so we can trust it, essentially.
Definitely. I mean, that's pretty huge, I guess. I mean, one of the big things about blockchain is, you know, not having it be able to be manipulated by governments and, you know, people who would want to do that.
Yeah, I agree. No, that's a great point about that. So it has a incredible benefit of making all this data immutable and trustworthy.
Yeah.
You could go ahead and maybe
Yeah, staking tokens. So I think it's really interesting. Staking IQ tokens is required to propose edits, vote on edits, and propose a vote on governance actions. IQ is staked by locking up tokens in a 21-day vesting period. This is similar to other blockchains such as Steam, which require users to power up and essentially lock and vest their tokens in order to vote stake them on content published on the platform. The process of staking IQ is also called powering, brackets, as a token of appreciation to Steam's pioneering design. IQ that is locked up for 21 days gives the holder brain power at a ratio of 1 to 1. Brain power is not a fungible or transferable token, only spent during usage of the EPN. So that's the network, Everipedia, by the staking account. Once an account's BP brain power, that is entirely spent, they must wait for the IQ staking period of 21 days to end before restaking their tokens for brain power to use on the EPN. Otherwise, they can acquire more IQ tokens and stake the newly acquired IQ for brain power. Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I like the name Brain Power for number one. It's similar to Steam Power. You essentially use your tokens to stake it, and then you can vote on things. And once you unstake it, you can't vote anymore. And so this essentially is the same thing. It allows you to propose, make some governance actions, and vote once you are staking it. And it's locked up for 21 days, and then you can use it, use the power. And then once you unstake it, you lose the power to take these actions. So it makes sense.
Okay, so they've got an example. A user has 150 IQ tokens. They can call that staking function to lock up their 150 IQ tokens for 21 days and get their allocated 150 brain power. And then they can use that for their edits, governance actions, and voting. That was a good example. It's pretty obvious, I guess.
Yeah. So, and the interesting thing though is just like Steam, it turns into Steam Power. So the IQ turns into brain power. You know, it's just like in two different tokens, but it goes back and forth. You know.
So, what do you think of it being 21 days? Why do you think it's 21 days?
That's a good a question. In Steam, it was really about encouraging people to hold their tokens originally so that they'd have some long-term vested interest in it. So those that have locked it up would not only get this, they would also, in Steam, they used to get additional inflation. Like they'd get more rewards essentially. And when you vote and curate, like by taking actions, you earn, right? So, but what happened in Steam is that you lost liquidity, and liquidity was actually more important for people. So I think it actually affected the system so that, you know, this long staking period, I think in Steam used to be like close to 2 years, right? And you couldn't do anything. You'd have to, like, you'd be stuck for 2 years in the staking period. So what they realized is that, hey, this is removing liquidity. No one wants to hold these tokens because, like, you'd have to stake for 2 years before you get any benefit. So it didn't really make sense to hold the Steam tokens at that point. So they just kind of dump it every time. Like every time you had Steam, you would want to sell it. So it decreased the price of Steam.
Yeah.
So they had to adjust it so that they said, okay, you know, we can't restrict people's kind of you know, liquidity with such a long hold period. And so they shrunk it down to, I think roughly it's roughly a month. You know, I think it's 3 months, 19 weeks, I think, instead of 2 years, right? and that helped the Steam ecosystem. I think the prices start moving up because they weren't locked in, and people could at least hold Steam for a little bit. And so this is kind of interesting because EOS, people are saying, oh, you should have a higher like period for staking EOS.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you do that, whenever you try to restrict shares for a longer period of time, you remove liquidity for someone. So there's value in liquidity. Mm-hmm. Like if you're stuck with holding something so volatile that could go from $5 to 10 cents in a couple of weeks, people will will not want to hold be restricted that way, and they'll value the coin far less if you don't have the liquidity. So I'm actually like, I don't think longer staking periods really help much. Mm-hmm. I think all you need is probably a few days, and this is why they designed EOS that way, for 3-day staking period, where it's just to minimize kind of like double voting. Mm-hmm. But other than that, you want to keep it liquid. You don't want to make people stake for more than a few weeks, more than months or years.
Yeah. So with this, if you stake and don't add any content there, were there rewards for that? I don't think there was there? Because on Steam, don't you receive some sort of reward for staking, don't you? Or for powering up?
Yeah, exactly. So there's additional rewards you get just for powering up. Mm-hmm. So that may be a little different. In this one, it doesn't seem like you get any extra. At least I haven't read anything.
Yeah. I'd love to see that. I think that's kind of important. But what they could do is, in order to have that flexibility of kind of getting some people to lock in their tokens for long periods of time to create a shortage and increase the price, they could kind of like a term deposit. If you lock in for 2 years, you get X rate of the inflation or various other fees. If you lock in for 1 year, you get a lower rate. If you lock in for 30 days, you get a lower rate still. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good model. It's a good model, and I think in traditional banking, that's how it works, which makes sense. You restrict your liquidity, and you get a certain interest rate. But in crypto, I think you have to be a little bit more aware of the risk, and so anything beyond, like in crypto, like 1 month is like a year's worth, right? So you almost have to really compress the hold period, mm-hmm. and you have to really increase the rewards for holding, essentially.
That's true.
And then the other flip side is, like, you have a two token system, so the market is trading the liquid token. So if it's so disadvantageous to hold the liquid liquid token, then what people will do is they'll just go from the powered or the restricted token, go into the liquid token, transfer into that, and then immediately sell it. Mm-hmm. So if your pricing is based on just the liquid token, it's gonna kind of probably negatively affect the price of the entire ecosystem, because that's what they price the system with, like on the liquid token. And but yeah, I think there is a balance, like what you're saying, where you just increase the amount for the restricted period. Maybe I would say like 6 months is probably the max I would do. Maybe maybe a year, but if you're just holding it for a year, you'd have to be in the 20, 30, 40% like return range, I think, in crypto for that to make sense. It's not like a difference between 1 or 2% on a CD in a bank, right?
Yeah. No.
So, but yeah, it is interesting. I mean, yeah, I think you make a good point of like maybe still trying to do something like that.
So they also say the second feature of the article module is the It's using brain power for token holder voting, inclusion or exclusion of proposed edits in queue. The validation of articles goes through a validation algorithm below, with parameters that can be changed through a governance vote. Okay, so they got the validation algorithm.
So this is important because this is really voting to see if this content is legit or not, right?
Yeah, yep.
So, but yeah, so they had to validate that.
One of the most important processes in the network is the validation of state changes to the database. That is approval of changes to articles of creation or creation of new ones. The validation algorithm is a function which takes in an argument, the proposed edit object. It's getting kind of technical. Anyway, it returns token rewards, accepted status, and slashing conditions. Okay, so I imagine it's going to go. Here, the curation awards. I hope it's going to go into detail on exactly how that works. So the period reward curation equals the curation mint rate, number of IQ tokens minted rewards per period P.
Do you want to maybe skip to the examples? Like this will get too detailed for most people, I think. So let's go to the example here.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay, so they've got the first example, assuming period reward of 10 IQ. So scenario 1, Sam the editor plus 10 vote. His reward would be 8.235 IQ. And then it's got Travis plus 25 as the vote. His reward would be 0.588 IQ. And Kedar plus 50 vote. His reward would be 1.176 IQ. So Sam is the main editor. I imagine he's the person who created the article, and then the two other people just provided edits to that. Is that correct?
Yeah. So well, I'm trying to. Maybe we should have looked at the formula a little bit, but just let's try to work through this a little bit. I thought it would be a little easier, but so Sam is the editor. So let's assume he's you're saying the content creator, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So out of, let's say 85 votes that they all have,
yeah.
He gets like, let's say, they as an editor, you get like, you just add up all the votes for everybody. So it's just essentially 1. Like this whole thing is 1.
Yeah.
Like divided by the entire vote. So it's just, he just gets 8 IQ, right?
Yeah.
Plus for being the editor, and then just based on his vote, he gets like 10 votes divided by the total number of votes times 2. So I think essentially he gets 8 IQ for just being the editor, and then his proportion of voting times 2 IQ for curation. What is it? Voting.
Mm-hmm.
Do they call that curation? Maybe curation.
Yeah, I guess they're the curators. So Travis and Kedar, they haven't done anything other than vote on the article. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So they just vote. They vote their 25. Like Travis votes his 25 out of 85, and then Kedar votes 50 out of 85 votes, and then they just do it in proportion. So the curation is split amongst the 3. The 2 IQ is split among the 3 people, and the 8 IQ is just given to Sam.
Okay.
As an editor. So if you post something, you get 8 IQ, and then based on your vote power of curation, you get, let's say you're like Sam, you have like 10 votes out of 85. You also get a curation reward for that.
So it's nice that, like, just by participating in voting, you can earn potentially a lot of IQ if you have a lot of brain power staked. And I assume, like, all those votes have to come from staked IQ, which turns into brain power. So 50, voting 50 means you voted 50 brain power.
Yeah, yeah. So Kadar is just all he has to do is vote, and he gets, well, you know, the creating is the most, of course, 8.2, right? You get that kind of the eight IQ off the bat.
Yeah. But I
And so
suppose creating takes a lot of time, whereas just voting 50 is one click, right?
true. Maybe in terms of rewards per unit time for sure.
Yeah.
So okay, so that's cool. So we get it. So essentially, like 80% is for posting, 20% is for curation,
Yeah.
and the 20 curation is based on like your percentage of votes of that content.
Yeah. Can we just quickly go over that algorithm they've got there?
This one?
Yeah. Oh wait, there's one for curation, one for edit. So that was the curation one. So the reward curator equals. I don't even know how to read that now, so maybe we shouldn't go over that. Do you know what this sign means? The one next to.
Oh, okay. So this means sum.
Oh, the sum of. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it makes sense. So we kind of we got it right where essentially they're all approving in this example, right? Yeah. So it's, you know, so Sam gets 85 out of 85 because of everyone's approving his content. So he gets the full 8 IQ, right?
Yeah.
But there are scenarios where let's say there's, you know, that Sam does not get approved. He gets a negative 25, so he only gets 60 out of 85 because Travis is saying this is not good content, right?
Okay.
So instead of getting
that's interesting. Yeah. So Sam has made his edit. He's voted 10 of his brain power. The reward starts at 8.333 in this one.
So I have a feeling, so Travis, for whatever reason, voted it down, right? He's saying this is not good content.
Yeah, there's something wrong with it.
But then I think the idea is, though, well, you know, Sam got more after Travis voted it down, right? Mm-hmm. So I assume that Travis was.
Is it because Kadar voted 50? What did he vote in the previous example? Did he vote more and that changed the... Oh no, he voted the same.
The idea maybe is that he didn't have enough voting power to be in consensus with everybody else. So their approval made Travis's disapproval like a negative. So he got slashed essentially. Mm-hmm. So Travis, unless you get, I think, higher, well, this is my guess, a higher upvote than downvote, like 50%, like more than like the majority.
Yeah.
Then you get slashed. So you want to be with the crowd essentially.
Yeah.
Else you could get slashed. So maybe we could read this here.
Yeah, definitely. That might explain it. So slashing conditions. Editing articles can be fairly contentious activity. However, there must be Sybil-resistant economic incentives to have token holders arrive at the common salient answer of the edit proposal. That is, there must be incentives for each individual agent to arrive at what they believe to be the common response, the correct one. Likewise, there should be disincentives proportionally to arriving at the minority response, the incorrect one. So that explains what has happened here, I guess. The person who voted against was in the minority, and then they have actually lost some of their brain power or IQ, and that's been redistributed to the author or editor of the article. So that 25 IQ was slashed.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what this extra time period is, but they probably he's kind of almost like frozen, I guess, right? But what do you think about majority? So if someone like you have like let's say you and a couple others, right? Uh, have like a vote of that amounts to 100, right?
Mhm.
And then some other people come in and they have a they like you upvote it, and then some people downvote it by 101, right? So that means then you're kind of slash because the majority voted against you, but it's just so close, like 100 to 101.
Yeah.
Is there danger in that, or is that okay because ultimately it's stake based, so everybody who has more tokens should have the biggest weight? Or is there any ways to take advantage of that where you're just kind of a whale and
Yeah.
you could just say, hey, this
You
is
game it.
yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And then
Well, I guess the thing is, there's a lot of risk to gaming it. Um, and in your example, if there was 101 staked for and 100 against, like the slashing is only by one.
oh,
It's
true,
only
true,
the difference.
true.
But say you were a whale and you were trying to stop good content just because you wanted to slash other, then the amount that you're putting up is a huge risk, because people, if the majority are good and they go against what you're saying, then I don't know, I'm trying to work out if you stand to lose a significant portion of what you're putting up to kind of mess with the system. But it's only the difference, right? It seems that anyway. But maybe it's just too hard to do.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm still wondering, but yeah, it's seems. I think your first point was good because it's just the difference, which is not a big factor. I think maybe that's what minimizes some bad activities. But if they just and they're probably not incentivized to really be um, uh, they'll lose the value of their tokens essentially if they try to disrupt things, right?
It
So
comes back to censorship, like to some governments, like buying all this IQ, maybe to censor certain articles. Maybe it's worth it to them.
yeah, so that's another okay. State actors that want like certain propaganda out there, right?
Yeah.
So would they have to like maybe buy too many tokens to overwhelm? Like, so I guess like as a user, you don't really care if they're buying up tokens to make your tokens valuable, and then at least there'll be a like maybe a response where people all come together and say, hey, this is wrong. This is like there's some propaganda, and they all come together, and so it becomes very expensive maybe to even more expensive to try to uh, kind of push the propaganda.
Yeah. This is where like a good token distribution is really important, right? Because if the token distribution's off, it's just the bad actors have too much power to
That's true too.
control the system.
That's true too. I mean, yeah, that's true too. Like you almost like the initial distribution can affect like the system. So the more decentralized the distribution is, I agree. Um,
Um, yeah. See, it says total majority BP votes take total minority BP votes divided by total BP votes, which is slashing ratio. So that's what we thought.
yeah. So like you were saying, so this example, uh,
Do you want me to say it?
oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, this is
From the 200 IQ, where should I start from? This example. Okay. User has 200 brain power and votes no, using all their BP for an edit proposal. Total votes equal 2,000 brain power with 1,500 BB votes. Yes. 500 total brain power votes. No. Because the user voted on the minority side, the slashing ratio is calculated. 1,500 take 500 divided by 2,000. So it's 0.5. Then multiplied by 21 days, which is the period, to get the increased lockup time. Oh, so you're right. It locks it up for more. It locks up their code.
You get no rewards and you get locked up, and that's that's not bad. I mean, that's not a bad system.
So it makes you incredibly illiquid as you progressively become a bad actor.
True.
Or make bad actor actions. So if you keep doing it, you'll get locked up forever. And, at a certain point, like the value of something that's locked up for 100 years or something is very low because the time value of money now is worth more than money later, and that's a long time to wait.
Yeah, it's actually a good penalty, actually, right? So, like we when we use EOS and we run out of CPU, we can we can feel it, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't do stuff, and it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
I can imagine it's the same feeling where like if you try to you get frozen out, like if you try to do some malicious activities or
yeah.
So
I just got to move over to a PowerPoint 1 second.
What was that?
I'm just moving to get close to the power.
So let's I think we'll just wrap up with the last few of these, and then because then we get into technical, but like this is the important point. I think we're covering a lot of the meat of it.
No, definitely.
Because what did we cover so far? Did we do the governance yet? We did the staking, and then the governance.
We touched governance briefly.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we did. Okay, cool. So that's pretty cool. Though we're almost there. We're just at the last part of. I like it because it's not that complex. I mean, it is.
It actually isn't once you see the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe we'll go and then we'll just talk about the last few things here. You can maybe go over and then we'll stop at this EOS implementation because that gets technical. That's all like database stuff and data structures and conclusions. So hey, we're pretty good. I think maybe let's see if we can go through the last parts of the article module. We covered the governance module. We covered the token module, and then the last thing is really this article module, right?
Yeah.
That's the last one. We actually covered all. This is the article module here, and this is the last one.
Yeah, we start. That's what we're halfway into, right?
Yeah, we did. We just covered slashing. So this is the last three. So maybe we start with identity.
Yeah, that's going to be important.
So you could go ahead.
It is possible to leverage upcoming on-chain identification and reputation systems to incorporate into validation algorithm and edit approval process, such that previous edit histories and identities of editors can be measured in the consensus process. Such identity systems could include viewport or native EOS user ID reputation systems. Since edit proposals and the approval or disapproval are already stored on chain, this user history can be incorporated into new updates to the validation algorithm, coupled with the ID credentials of the user. Okay, so that would solve a lot of the problems that we were sort of hypothesizing about in terms of bad actors. The integration of a reputational system alongside the staking of IQ would help to stop those situations.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think there's probably great algorithms and like web of trust systems to enhance this whole thing. As you know, Steam also has a reputation system, or Steemit has a reputation system that's on top of Steam, which is like just it's independent of. I think it's outside of the blockchain actually. So I'd have to double check. Maybe it is somehow built in the blockchain, but yeah, that would really help though.
So there's also the ability to delegate votes, which I think is kind of important, considering like a lot of people maybe just want to own IQ. They don't have the time to turn it into brain power and do edits and do the voting process. So, okay, let's read through that. Users who do not wish to personally vote using the brain power can delegate their brain power to another entity or pool for consensus voting. Pools will be operated by the community and vote on behalf of their users according to transparent principles published in the Constitution, Wiki, or similar document. This could form a secondary market, sounding a lot like the Rex market actually. This could form a secondary market for the price of brain power. There is sufficient demand similar to how secondary markets are likely to form over EOS, IO, and RAM storage. Additionally, this could allow for passive owning of IQ tokens if delegates pass back some amount of the IQ earned by creating content to the original delegator. Okay.
Yeah, so these are kind of cool. I mean, leasing markets like Rex and Shintai, and even Steam has a way to delegate power. So you can imagine like you kind of leasing power, like our brain power, and like really dictating like what happens at the network. And Steam power is kind of like that too. You could promote your own post by like leasing powered and then upvoting your own posts.
Yeah.
That's how it's used on Steam. But at least this is more like, hey, to determine like which ones are valid content. So yeah, so there will be like it's good to have. There's natural markets that form anyways with delegation. So.
And also they talk about anti-censorship staking pool could state they will not be in favour of any edit that adequately cites its sources. Its sources regardless of the specific of the content. Users who believe in this vision for the encyclopedia network could delegate their votes to the staking pool. So that's another method for anti-censorship, is utilising pools that kind of have ideals that go against that.
Yeah, that's actually cool because the thing I mentioned earlier was everyone getting together just independently and trying to go against like the propaganda, right?
Yeah.
So this is an easier way where like you say like beforehand, hey, I'm gonna prevent censorship, so just delegate all your stake to me, and then I'll be a watchdog for this. Then you still have to trust the person you delegate to, right? but yeah, that's easier though, because it's easier to kind of consolidate and then just watch the watchdog, I guess.
Yeah.
And then try to coordinate and get everyone together like at kind of at an ad hoc basis. So.
Mm-hmm. And like a pool is really a proxy, right? These are the proxies of.
Yeah, exactly. They're just like the EOS proxies.
Yeah. You can also stake by article or topic. It's possible to explore per article or per topic staking, such as the staking IQ tokens to a specific subsection of the network's content, giving the staker more brain power authority over such articles and topics, but only allows them to partake in voting for that specific. Only allows them to partake in that specific area. So that's interesting that within the protocol itself, I guess if you want to call it that, it's possible to make it so it only applies to certain topics. That's pretty powerful. Like it's another element of taking away the trust element required. It's not just I trust this proxy or pool will only focus on this. It's actually inbuilt into the system.
Yeah, you could get like industry experts, like, you know, certain, like they say, jurisdictions, right, of experts.
Yeah. And if people decide that all of a sudden they're not the expert and someone's better, they can always switch staking pools to someone else. It sort of centralizes a lot of what happens in Wikipedia, right? Gives, though it's like a voted, it's a like a plutocratic centralization, so it's based on the voting. Um, so you get the positives of more efficiency by centralizing, um, but you also have a fair voting system. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's some kind of balancing, I guess,
Mm.
between the two, right? I guess in different situations, and but yeah, I like the way that you can, you know, stake by article or topic. I mean, this is, I think, more exploratory. Um, so they haven't probably implemented any of this yet. So, but yeah, that's you know, that's probably good to think about in the future to see if, like, how to design that, or, you know, how to make it work where
Yeah.
can encourage like expertise and or industrial expertise. So, or domain specific, I guess, is another good word.
Exactly.
Expertise.
What else?
So the rest is, you know, they talk about EOS software. So, you know, this is regular stuff that we know, I guess. I don't know what this is, but uh, I don't know. This looks an interesting picture. So value creator, the content creators, central server.
Okay, so this is the
This
current
is
state
central.
because it has central server.
So, okay, so the idea is that value creators and value extractors are the same people
Okay.
using the token system. This is the old model. This is the traditional model, and this is the new model, right? So that's kind of the idea, I guess.
That's a cool graph. I like the way that they put it.
Yeah. So database schema is just probably just technical stuff. Article data structure, it's a lot of technical stuff. Blockchain agnosticism. They're saying they might use. Okay, so they're saying they can use other platforms for this. You know, Ethereum Plasma, Tezos, other things.
Okay, they could just find a way to swap the tokens.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see if you can create a system where it's like, yeah, blockchain agnostic, where like you still have the same tokenomics still like almost separately, and then it's just, you know, on the other platforms to gain some sort of network effect, right? On other platforms. But anyways, that's kind of what they write about. But right now, I mean, EOS is the only mature one, I think. So bounty services, bots, private edits, marketplace, and network development. So
That's all.
okay, so they're saying it's agnostic to features and services. So so you can build these other types of features on top of it, I assume.
That would be interesting. I guess these types of things, bounties, services, bots, private edits, marketplaces, these are probably some of the reasons for buying up large stakes in Everipedia tokens. Uh, so, like, if you're developing a certain type of software, you want there to be more content on it. Maybe that's a reason that you would buy lots of IQ, and then you can create bounties for creating that content and setting up marketplaces. Potentially, I don't know. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think it's yeah, they're just saying that they don't like uh they're kind of an open platform where you can build things on top of it. So yeah, if you do have tokens, you can have extra potential if these other systems are built on top of it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for example, like this creates a base layer for ecosystem of services, bounty, freelance work, marketplaces, and marketplaces for citation verification services and other novel uses.
Yes.
So,
They talk about like CNN and New York Times kind of integrating it to maybe help
yeah,
you curate articles and edit them, and that's pretty cool.
sure. Even though I wouldn't trust these major media organizations, I guess yeah, that's true. Um, so okay,
In the
and then
model was the editing rewards. Like, what do you get for making an edit as opposed to a completely new article? Or is it always 10 tokens that you like?
yes, so we should go back to that. But my assumption was that being an editor is the same thing as being a creator,
Yeah.
and that it's just 8 for whether it's a new entry or an edit.
Okay. So it encourages a lot of edits as long as they're approved.
And you know, I think for Wikipedia it's okay because I mean I could post content with one word,
Mm.
right? And then someone has to build on it. So it's like, you know, George Washington was the first president. That's all I say, right? That's like a short sentence. But then you have to add to it like the next sentence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably not like this post is not like you're doing this blog, right? And then you're just editing the blog. Um,
Sounds a bit gameable though. Like, why would you write an article in one post when you could do it in 100 and earn 100 times the rewards, right?
that's true too. So it's not based on. So what is it? You're right. Like if I write a long Wikipedia with a bunch of stuff versus just one with one sentence, like how do you distinguish the content rewards, the edit rewards, right? Maybe people will naturally vote the one that has more content
Mm-hmm.
higher, or there'll be more votes for that. But that's probably just based on user discretion, right? They're like, they just have to evaluate, oh, this is like a lot of content for the first post. So you're right. Like what increments of edits is it? Like, so maybe the practice will be do, you know, a few sentences, one paragraph or something, right?
Mm.
And then someone adds to it, and then you just stop there, and then you just add another. Like you'll keep doing it, and people will have to vote for, like, it's subjective. It could be 2 sentences, it could be 10 sentences, but you kind of as an editor or content creator will identify like what's a reasonable rate that gets the votes,
Mm-hmm.
like what's the reasonable amount of content or edits.
Or does it? Maybe eventually it will all be part of a pool for that period, and depending on the amount of votes that an article gets versus another, it's only getting a small amount. Well, not an article, but any edit or submission. If the total votes for that are like only a small percentage of the period's votes, and other articles obviously get substantially more, then maybe that's how it distributes. But
Yeah, they try to make it so that it works its way out, it works out, I guess, like naturally, where it's just everybody who votes really dictates it. So there's a pool, like you say, for 30 minutes. And if you're putting small content, you're probably not going to get as much votes as if you put like solid and quality good content and it's longer. So, and then you're assuming that the token holders will naturally identify that.
Yeah.
But yeah, true. I mean, if you know, there's some probably inefficiencies that could happen, but they're just trusting the stakeholders. It's really like trusting the whales to figure out like how to, you know, do the best job and keep the token value up you know.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, they'll have some things to figure out over time to reduce kind of bad actor kind of gaming the system to get the most. But that's where they've already talked about things like identity systems, proxy or not voting pools. So hopefully those sorts of things will help to correct things in the short term.
All right, so let's finish it strong with this conclusion, and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead. You can let's. This is it. This is our last.
The Everipedia network uses IQ tokens which track the stakes of use and act as incentive rewards for content creators and curators. The network uses a 3-module system, token, governance, and article to create self-sustaining database of encyclopedia articles. The structure of content is uniform and standardized so that it is easily analyzed, consumable, and improved upon by services and front-end websites, AI, and bots. The database schema allows all technical guarantees of prior wiki software, such as historical snapshots of all article states, as well as new functions not possible before, such as distributed real-time hosting and scalable forking and merging of articles. Innovation in the encyclopedia industry has stagnated in the past 10 years. Creating a synchronized collaborative encyclopedia database accessible by all applications on the internet will generate the network effects required to reignite growth and innovation in the documentary knowledge. That was good.
Yeah, that's awesome. We there was a little bit about the technical like database schema, so I guess there were some technical innovations that we probably skipped a little bit, but other than that, I think as far as the tokenomics is concerned, we covered a lot of that really, I think, well. And then especially like the 3-module system we covered. So I think this is great. Encyclopedia industry, Wikipedia competitor, incentive rewards for content creators and curators. And yeah, I think this is great. It's exciting to kind of have organization pursue this. So I think there's a lot of potential. So any other thoughts, Justin?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's a really good system, and I think the thing that will be interesting to me is, as kind of usual, is like the weakest point is what is the reasons for buying into the system. I mean, obviously you need a certain amount in order to create content and approve content, but where is the demand going to be for large buys? Or, you know what I mean? Like there's no advertising inbuilt. So what's going to drive the value of the IQ token?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're removing kind of this, and they didn't mention anything about advertisers, right? And so it's one of the good things about Wikipedia is there are no ads, right? So they have to rely on donations. But we kind of we assume that component away, but like what's driving the value of the tokens? Is the value of the content itself, and people's maybe desire to keep it, like, are we capturing that value, like the value of this data or this encyclopedia, and is that being distributed to people kind of organically? Or do we need an external validation of that, where if the content, you're getting eyeballs, you get advertisers that want to get in front of you to view those. But so it's an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, is it? I mean, because we're the internet is ad based. I mean, that's how all the revenue is generated on the internet. You have two companies that get probably 90% of all internet ad revenue, which is Google, number one, Facebook, number two. That's it. Nobody else makes money on the internet, right? So
I wonder, could you add like an element like that where the content creators get extra money coming into the system based on the attention of the individuals reading. That one of the problems is that puts a paywall on the website where people need a certain amount of IQ to read content, and that's what I mean. They could turn it into like a medium type setup where you get 5 articles for free or whatever it is, and then after that point you have to pay extra.
That's a fantastic thought there, and I think that might make this entire system more sustainable in a way, because people have to, not legitimize, but they have to validate the content, and it's whether it's attention somehow capturing that, or number of views is probably a little weaker, but I mean, people are getting valuable content, so you need to measure that in a way.
Yeah.
And if you can, then it would be, but it would create different dynamics, because I think for Wikipedia, people just want, like, they're just throwing knowledge out there. And so maybe some things a little bit more obscure, some things are more maybe important for people to want to know. Mm-hmm. But at least there is this kind of almost demand side rather than driven by just supply side, where people are just putting stuff that they want.
It would drive the most important content to be added to the site and curated at the highest level based on supply and demand, which would have positive effects, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I think I heard about the Everipedia guys. They were at the SF Hackathon, and they did mention something more about like knowledge, like, you know, and knowledge industries and knowledge networks are incredibly important, because they improve all aspects of people's lives, whether it's a business or personally. So like this knowledge that allows you to gain incredible advantages, let's say. So that's maybe in high demand. So if there's a network of, you know, that maybe more specific rather than just encyclopedia knowledge, they were trying to go for like knowledge, like just, you know, something higher wisdom, right?
Exactly.
Rather than information. You know, and those, but like to your point, where it's more demand driven, where this is, I want to know how to improve XYZ, like, you know, if it could be business wise, like I want to learn how to, you know, solve this, you know, business problem, or, you know, this knowledge can help me, and they'll pay, I pay like hundreds, I'll pay thousands sometimes if you're a business. And so, yeah, and that would be more demand driven, where like there's this desire for that. So I think so. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that kind of puts it more like, you know, completes like this whole circle.
Exactly. Maybe it's something maybe they're just trying to figure out down the line. It's a bit like, I mean, like a lot of businesses that are huge now didn't really understand how that demand will come in terms of like money coming into the system, like Google, for example. You know, they just knew that there was demand for their search algorithm, and people wanted to utilize that, but they didn't perhaps have worked out exactly how they would make money from it, or how that last kind of piece of the pie would figure itself out. But I guess, yeah, there's a lot of things that could come in the future. You basically, when you're buying these tokens, you're betting on them figuring that out. It could be something like, you know, with the examples that they had with CNN or other news sites, if they integrated or built on top of the IQ network, they could add an extra element to the equation, which could be paying people in their own token, the CNN token or whatever it is. That could perhaps help kind of drive another aspect to it. Whereas, so by utilizing the IQ network, they're able to do it, and that's the preferred medium. And then there could be advertisements added on top on the CNN website. So there's like lots of creative ways to add that element in, and maybe like the Everipedia page is kind of the proof of concept that works, but some of the more business-like profitability actually comes out of what else gets built on top, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, and yeah, there could be a lot of complementary systems that maybe create another dynamic and business model on top of Everipedia.
Because at the end of the day, if Everipedia proved this IQ system, like that'll drive other businesses to utilize IQ, and that'll make sure that the supply is constant, because they'll have their own methods that they'll come up with to drive more of the business sense into the system.
Yeah, I agree. So, all right, cool. Hey, we covered I think a great kind of concept, Wikipedia, encyclopedia knowledge on the internet, or information on the internet, and an incentivized model for that. So a lot of interesting things to think about in terms of the design and tokenomics. But I think, yeah, that's great. Fantastic. Hopefully this will be a good resource for people when they're designing similar systems. So, all right, cool. Yeah, really appreciate it. We'll catch up. Maybe I'll ping you about other stuff soon after we end this broadcast. But yeah, thanks guys for whoever is out there. And all right, take care, guys.
Cheers.
All right.
Catch you.